to raise at this time while we're discussing this, while it's open? Okay, there being none, that will close the public hearing part of this meeting. Now we'll start the work session between the Planning Commission and the Town Council. Public is free to listen, but there will be no public comment taken at this time on this matter. So, Donna, I'll let you open it up, considering that you were the one that was pushing for this joint session, so to speak.
Okay, that's fine. Well, I guess I really wanted this joint session, and I know it's a sentiment of many, if not all, the planning commissioners and the town council to get together. And I just felt it was very important that we discuss a long-range strategic plan for our development, for our town. So
I have a suggestion.
Sure.
Why don't we take a look at the general plan?
Do you guys want me to, I have that open. I could
That's a good idea.
share my screen.
That would be great.
Alicia, is it better if I share my screen, or would you prefer to?
Yeah, since you've got it open, go right ahead.
Alicia, can you stop sharing this screen?
Sure. On mine, it says it's stopped. Is it not stopped on yours? Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Oh, there it goes. Okay.
How's that? Okay, sorry.
Okay. Can you all see that?
Needs to be a little bit bigger.
Hang on. Is that better?
Even bigger?
Yeah. I think so. Anyone else?
You can all see that?
Can you up it one more?
How's that?
Better.
And I think, Thomas, a lot of it is in the tables, you know, so maybe concentrate on that area. I think there's 4 or 5 tables in here that really does the summarization well.
There are, but I just want to make sure you all can see that this is blown up beyond my screen. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, just real quickly, the town adopted its general plan back in 2019, and keep in mind, a general plan is another way of saying comprehensive plan. It's what we use in the Mountain West. This outlines your vision statement, which kind of sets your overarching kind of value, your vision for the community, which is preserve outstanding views, cultivate an inviting neighborhood atmosphere, and build a connected community. Those are really kind of the 3 vision statements that were identified in 2019. Associated with that, you'll see that there are a series of tables, and they get into a fair amount of detail, and I'll walk into as much detail as you want if you have a question, but you can see that there's some goals with regard to land use, some goals with regard to housing, some transportation and economic development direction. And then we can always come back to this. I just want to make sure I outline all of them. Sorry. Public facilities goal, kind of more of the internal public works component of a comprehensive plan for a community. The environmental goals, annexation goal summary, and then the plan actually starts to walk into land use and gets a little bit more specific. But I thought maybe we could leave it here. And I don't know if people had specific questions or wanted to walk through some of the the tables, we can do that, or how it's applicable to different developments that are in place. But I'm willing to help as needed.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I mean, one thing I think would be helpful, and I know we don't have it, none of us received it, was the survey. And I just was wondering, I really like to get the input of our residents here in our town, to see what they see as a future for our town. Do we want nightly rentals? Do we want, is it something that they don't mind? They don't mind having the town, gain revenue through nightly rentals, or is that something that is, doesn't preserve a cultivating and inviting neighborhood atmosphere? So, I just, wanted to discuss that, and I thought others would, want to also, things in that nature. But real quick, before we did get started, what is that? I mean, just, of course, we didn't receive the survey. What is the holdup for the survey?
So the survey, we were kind of going back and forth with a number of questions and kind of finessing questions.
Okay.
I think the survey, Alicia, if you're still on, I think it's probably going out today, tonight, after this meeting, or tomorrow. Am I right?
Yeah, I was just working on the finalization and the email list and everything to get that sent out either today or tomorrow. So I've been working on it today.
Okay. So they're like specific questions, or is it more general questions? You think is it specific to like boulders? I was told one time it wasn't going to be specific, and then
I think
Is there any reason we can't put the draft up legally at this point, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't, I mean,
There's
Thomas,
no legal reason why you can't.
yeah, I mean, we're just discussing the context of the 10 questions. I know Jonathan and Katie were heavily involved in this. Who's got the last version?
Thomas, do you want to show that, or do you want me to? Oh, you got it. Okay.
there it is. Can you all see that okay?
Yeah, I just explain.
So we landed at 10 questions for the final survey. Again, a number of people from council and some residents and town staff participated. I'll let you guys walk through it, but it was 10 questions, and it was really kind of high level, trying to get an understanding of, really at the end of the day, is there more of a desire to see additional development, in particular commercial development, to help pay for fiscal and community needs, budgetary needs, or is there a desire to maybe slow things down a bit, but that may require a property tax increase? So it was really questions outlining preferences.
Okay.
Tell me when you all are ready for me to go to the next page.
I'm ready whenever.
I am too.
Yep, whenever.
Go ahead.
So the question you're in now is really kind of getting to that question: development density or potential property tax increases.
Who are you directing the question at the planning commission or the town council or the town residents?
This is going out to community-wide town residents.
All right.
Could you make it a little bit bigger?
Yeah, a little bigger. I might be able to read faster.
Me too.
Right.
Hang on. Tell me when it's good.
Oh, that's good.
That's good.
Okay, can I go to number 4?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
tell me.
So you have 85.
So number 4 is almost a repetition of question number 3, but tying it to the fiscal component. So looking at it through a fiscal lens.
With respect to the second option under number 4, I think it would be helpful for people to put things in context if we could put a dollar value on the option number 2, the way it was done at number 1.
Down in this area.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that people understand, well, somewhat less. Well, 1,050 per million, or is it 1,045, or is it, $100? Putting some kind of context.
We don't have the exact number, and it really depends on timing of build out for the boulders, right? If we could get a better understanding, but if everything potentially built out as is, according to Rob Sant, there may be no need for a tax increase. The issue gets a little bit challenging in terms of timing, right? If residential developed first, you don't really get that much benefit. If a hotel developed up front in the first 2 or 3 years, maybe there would be significant benefit. I can try to work with Rob and see if he can clarify, but generally what he said is, based on the fiscal analysis, it could be virtually no increase if built out as planned timely.
And there were some other recommendations, as I recall. I don't know if Katie's on the line. I think Jonathan is on the line. I thought Katie brought up some good word changes, like $1 million of home value should be really $1 million of assessed home value, as opposed to market home value, which are two different numbers, and things like that. So I thought there was some wording. If we're sending this out tomorrow, I think there should be some cleaning up of some of the wording that we agreed to offline, from what I thought.
And I had a question. Obviously, Shoreline, we're not totally built out here. So wouldn't that, because you're going to be generating, I know we're not really making, tax revenue wise from the homes here, but at least you have more of a basis.
No, you
have more
definitely will.
homes. So does that make an impact too?
I mean, certainly as more and more homes are built and they get put on the tax record, it works to the community's advantage, make no mistake. So you've had about 350 or so houses built and put on the record, beyond Deer Mountain affordable, right? But since then, you've got about 350-ish units that have been built in town, and you're entitled for about 2,400. So there's a long way to go to community build out. So yeah, every house that comes online is a benefit. I mean, just given Hideout's property values is a benefit to the community. That wouldn't be true in all communities, but given the value of houses here, there is a benefit to the community.
Okay. I mean, so it may not be, as high as 1,050 annually. I mean, if, this build out isn't going to take, this side Shoreline, Deer Waters, Deer Springs, it's not going to take as long as Boulders. So we would have already had that built out probably before Boulders finishes one of their phases. So I'm just trying to think about, where, it isn't like we're going to be, it may be less that we.
That's right.
Am I incorrect?
No, it's an approximate number. And this, I think, assumes current conditions. So you're right. It doesn't anticipate some of the future revenues. It kind of looks at it here and now, right?
Right.
But you're right. The situation, assuming development continues at the speed that it is going, you're right. You'll derive benefits fiscally for the community.
Right.
Let me jump in here for a second. This is the mayor. one, Lisa, you should be able to figure out which line is talking by looking at that, so you can figure out which one I am. But sorry, that's enough. So the problem with that thought process is that as Shoreline, for example, continues to grow, the demands on the public services will continue to grow.
Right.
So, so the need for revenue to support the growth of public services continues to grow. So I don't think, unless we decide that everything's going to overnight rentals and we're generating a ton of money and everything's going to second homes, it's generating tax base, et cetera. I don't think that extrapolation of saying that there's going to be another X number of 100 houses is going to do X for us applies directly. The other issue is that some of the growth is Deer Waters, Deer Springs, and Claim. Those properties are inside the MIDA project, so we have different kind of revenue from that, which doesn't directly go into general fund. It goes into development fund, and we did that because of what we just saw in the general plan, which gives us revenue to do the parks and rec kind of thing that we want to do. So, as those projects get built out, we will get revenues from MIDA, which will enable us to invest in space to, put in pickleball courts or park areas or that kind of stuff. I was thinking it might make sense to actually put up the county base map, and just so everybody can see, what's committed where.
Okay.
Once you
I
get to the
agree. Should
general
we
plan,
finish looking at the survey first?
Yeah.
Okay, right. I can pull that up after the survey so you all can see that.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll go to the next one.
Okay.
Good to
Well,
go
I
to
do like
seven.
the rating. That's a good idea there.
And it works well in SurveyMonkey. It's a
Yeah.
very easy to use survey delivery system. There you go.
A community center, would that include a town hall, or are we just assuming we have the town hall for usage?
I think it's assuming more of just a community center kind of
Okay,
gathering
just-
space,
okay.
usable space. That's my understanding anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
With respect to number 9, would that number be an assessed valuation number or a market value number? So when we say home valued, would that be valued at assessed value or market value?
That would be, since it's based on taxation, it would be assessed value. We'd have to clarify that. You're right.
Yeah, same thing was as with the other question. Yeah, I think we were trying to measure everything against assessed value.
Okay, issuing a bond.
just for technical, I'm looking at my property bill, my property tax bill, and it says on the tax bill, market value of your property. So it's printed on the tax bill. I agree it's the assessed value, but that's what the tax bill says. where that language came from.
Mayor, do you know if on that tax bill, is there any line item anywhere that says assessed value equals market value?
Doesn't, I mean, Thomas, I'm just looking at what's printed in bold here.
I don't think so, Thomas. I went over
Says,
my tax bill with a fine tooth comb. I don't remember seeing that. I can pull mine up as well here. But it does show you the fact that you get the 45% off because this is your primary residence. So
Would that bond issue also be potentially for preserved land?
So what it says is market and taxable value of your property. So maybe we should be calling it the taxable value.
Mhm.
Because they have a market value and then they have a taxable value. That's probably what we should be using is taxable value. Because that's what you're paying taxes against.
The same thing above, obviously, to be consistent.
Right.
Yep.
So I have a question about the nightly rentals. Is there any reason that we couldn't put some restrictions on the nightly rentals and still allow them? Because one of my thoughts is that, there's times of the year, like the blackout dates for skiing, which, like Christmas week and holiday weekends. And one of my thoughts was rather than allowing it across the board anytime, that people might be a little more comfortable with the idea of just allowing them specific times.
I
So
would have to look
we
into
have-
that. Oh, sorry.
All right, Polly, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I would have to look into that. I know that some places will restrict nightly rentals to a certain, like X number of nights per year, which is pretty hard to enforce, but so that it's not rented all the time. I haven't seen any where there are blackout dates of you can't rent it during this month, or you can only rent it during this month. But I can obviously take a look if that's something that that we're directed to look into. But it's more of, as you guys know, and I think it's going to be coming up as part of a discussion, is the nightly rentals is just a policy question, and there are a lot of different permutations on how to address it.
Well, there's also some HOAs which just don't allow nightly rentals. It's right in the HOA documents too, so.
That's correct. The master HOA, Tony, doesn't allow that, although they're being challenged to think about it, given that they're trying to sell some properties that were intended to be condo type units. But that aside, the other thing that we've said for anybody with nightly rentals is they have to be managed by a professional company. It can't just be a Airbnb or VRBO. There has to be a local presence management firm that takes care of the property and inspects and are the first calls, so that there's some controls.
Okay.
One thing I'd maybe, this is Ryan, throw out there is, maybe not the whole thing is nightly rental. I have heartburn that the whole thing's nightly rental, and what kind of community, if it is even a community or just a bedroom community with short-term stays, maybe certain parts of it are nightly, maybe certain parts are not.
You can also limit the number of days, like you can say minimum of 7 days, so that people aren't coming here every 2 days, different people.
Right. But would that fly with the hotel?
No, I think the Boulders is a separate entity because it's so separate from the rest of town. So I think we have to figure out what we want to allow them to do versus maybe
I mean,
the
a
rest.
hotel by definition is a nightly rental,
Right.
literally a nightly rental situation.
Right.
Right. And that
Their
wouldn't
zoning
really
would have to approve that.
impact.
Yeah.
That wouldn't really impact the rest of the town, is having the hotel as nightly rental.
Hey, this is Chris. I'm finally with it. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Chris.
Hello. Sorry, I had to work late. I couldn't join sooner. So I think, Sherry, you made me think of something when you were talking about boulders. If we're going to have like a long range planning discussion, and we know that we have one very large undeveloped property of 112 acres, what do we want to, what would the town want that to be? I know we're starting to talk about nightly rentals and stuff, which I can tell you there's probably a wide range of opinions on that and a lot of work we'd have to do to come up with some kind of policy on that. But I just want to, I'm not sure what the agenda and the purpose or what we want to try to accomplish tonight in our first, joint session, but I think we probably should be thinking about for the rest of, for the remaining land that's within Hideout, that's undeveloped, and if we had the ability to influence or control what that land would do or be or provide to the town, I feel like we should be having that discussion. And going back to the general plan, I think there are some pretty important things in those tables that Thomas showed us earlier that include, preserving open space, view sheds, connectivity, because that's what Sherry triggered that with me when she said the Boulders project is really separate. But, in my opinion, we should be talking about, do we want a 112 acre development that's way above the current allowable density to be so different? Or do we want it to be integrated into the town? Do we want that connectivity that we're missing? Because I think we can all agree we're pretty much bisected by Highway 248. As a community, we don't have any gathering places, whether that's community center, town hall, public parks. We're still missing some of the very, very important things that are part of the vision in that's expressed in the general plan from 2019. I thought Thomas was kind of leading us in a direction that I'd like to go back to, which is, can we look, once we're ready to do that, can we, and we're off of the survey, can we go back and take a look and at all of the items in the general plan and see what we have and we don't have yet? Because this undeveloped property that is currently within the town is pretty much our last chance, aside from annexation, to be able to try to realize some of the vision in that plan.
And Donna, maybe to help you feel better, the general plan was created with input from people who live in the community. So it
was it a survey that was done prior? Because I don't.
I wasn't here, but I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody else can answer.
Yeah, I was involved with the general plan when I was on the planning board. This is Ralph speaking. And we did not do a survey, but we certainly did 3 or 4 working sessions.
We did do a survey, Ralph.
Yeah, I thought there was a survey.
Was that a real official survey? I
Yeah,
mean,
we did a real official survey.
Oh, okay. Because I don't remember the exact data.
We had 170 responses or something like that. Could be in the appendix of the general plan, but there was
Alright.
quite a bit of feedback. There were public meetings, there were all kinds
Yeah,
of.
that piece I remember. Maybe they were, maybe we got some of the survey, the written surveys. Yeah, that might have been included. Okay. I buy that. Nothing that we did, like, I don't think that we've been doing now, though, if that was a delineation.
I really like the direction Chris was going, because I'm thinking, can we just envision that land? Let's say there was no boulders project. I think that's a good idea to look to see what would we do with that land? You know, would we still build 45 homes? No, but what are we missing? We have homes down on this side, and I like the idea, the connectivity, we need that. Whether it's a tunnel that they were talking about, but I think that's very important, because we don't want that to be Hideout 1 and we're Hideout 2, or East Hideout and West Hideout. I mean, we really should think about it as we're all one town.
Don't we still have some spaces that are not built out here that we don't really know what's gonna go there? Shouldn't we
Well,
have an idea of what
let me go back to this.
we're putting in those spaces?
Yeah, we do. I think Thomas is going to be able to show that, but most.
We
Yeah,
don't.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Thomas.
primarily, can you see my cursor okay?
Yeah.
Right. Can you see that?
The cursor?
Here, I'll do it differently.
Oh, I see you. I see it up top.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is.
Sorry, Thomas. Sorry. Can I jump in for just 1 second?
Yeah.
So our visioning is terrific, but the landowner has rights, and he or she may or may not have any interest in accommodating what we'd like to do. So then the only option becomes that the town or some LLC sponsored by the town becomes the owner of the land. That's the only way. Keep that in mind.
Right. So.
And can I just jump in on that as well? I mean, you have an application before you, but it is still
We're losing you, Polly.
Oh no. Polly, I don't know if you can hear us, but we lost you. I think.
Yeah, I got as far as we have an application before us.
I think
Yeah.
I would guess that Polly would say we're really not discussing the application, per se. So
Right.
I think from a holistic perspective, I think where you all were going was what's available in terms of area for future development in the community. So if you have commercial goals, if you have different goals for land use, what's available? Really, the area that I outlined here in blue is the 112 acres that the Boulders is currently under application for, right? Beyond that, all of the green out here is, of course, Jordan L. State and Government Bureau of Recreation land, so that's not developable. Up here, you've got Deer Waters, you've got Lakeview, you've got Deer Waters Phase 4, and then you've got really the Shoreline development in here, the Canyon, Reflection Bridge, etc. down here. The golf course kind of runs through this area. We do have a little bit of land up here that the town owns, a few acres that might be lend itself well for commercial development. Up here, you've got Deer Springs, and then Deer Mountain Apartments are over here. Claim is here. So you don't have a lot of land left to deal with. It's really this acreage, and you've got a few acres up here, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 acres, not very well, not all contiguous, but that's really the land that you have to work with. Some of the land in here is part of the master HOA. They have some additional development opportunities, but in terms of what you would be looking at, it would really be in the area along 248 and then maybe the area up here.
So how do we get the town-owned land to actually be developed?
The town-owned land, this
Yeah.
area. So I think we would decide what we want to do. And one of our recommendations has been that we conduct a small area plan up there, work with nearby property owners and see how we could fit some, maybe commercial development up there, make a little bit of a kind of village concept up there. So do a small area plan. Since it'd be town owned, we'd probably throw it out for an RFP for somebody to come in and develop it. Whether we lease it to them, we sell it to them. It's probably obviously not something that the town would do, but it would be us in partnership with the developer.
How many acres is that space that's owned by the town?
I think roughly, Jan may know off the top of her head, I think it's about 10 acres. It's not all contiguous. It's a little bit splotchy, but it's got some opportunity along Ross Creek. So it's got some opportunity. Let's just leave it there.
You're correct, Thomas. It is about 10 acres. And the fact that it is it's very narrow, which it has some challenges to development, but with creativity, we can certainly try to maximize potential. But you're right, in the 10 acre.
I'll just add that there's natural stream running through there. So there's some sensitive lands in there. You guys might not be aware, but they're there. And also it's part of the MIDA project area. So, we're limited in what kind of, if we were to put any kind of commercial there, I don't think we're going to see the kind of revenue benefits that we think.
I also wonder if
sorry, can I jump in for a second? So Chris, I'm interested in challenging MIDA on that, and encouraging them to reconsider what the arrangements are for those pieces of dirt. So I think that's, we can do some work on that if we decide we want to do something there.
Okay.
Additionally, there's a phase of Deer Springs that's on the uphill side of the Jordanelle Parkway that hasn't been finalized and described. And so there may be something that we can do in conjunction with the developer there around how we want to see that space used up there. I think there could be a logical fit for some commercial right along the Jordanelle Parkway. That is inside the MUD area, but again, we'd have to look at how that would work. That's certainly one area that, because it hasn't been finalized and approved, I think there's potential. Consider that. The other piece of property is the Frisbee property at the edge of Deer Springs, which Mr. Frisbee has a concept that I think he shared with Thomas so far, that we might be seeing come forward. So there's some other pockets besides the Solomon property that are inside the town that might come together. And that's part of the problem we have, is we also have commitments from Deer Springs, Deer Waters, and Shoreline for putting in certain public amenities. And we have to put a plan together that defines what we want those to be. I mean, they've all committed to do a certain amount of investment, but they don't care whether they do what they said the first time or we said, because we have multiple amphitheaters, for example, that were approved. I don't know that we need multiple amphitheaters.
Yeah.
But they're happy to spend the same, $200,000 or whatever it is on a park or a court or whatever we decide we want. So what we really need is a group of people doing some visioning to say, here's what we know that are committed from various developers as far as space wise, and how would we like to see that utilized, and then and go from there and saying what gaps are missing and how do we go after those. Again, the opportunity for us to buy land exists. Not everything in Hideout is, although it's platted, has not been sold, and therefore, the option to purchase and repurpose, it may require rezoning. Don't know, but there are pods and pieces of land that could come along and be utilized as part of a more comprehensive integrated plan. That's really our challenge, is how do we sit down and get some people together and talk about what that looks like.
And are we willing to explore any opportunities outside or any lands contiguous? I mean, we've already talked about an annexation. So have we looked at any other properties that adjoin us? I know I was asking Thomas, and I asked you, Mayor, for the same thing, and Thomas gave me a list, but is there any opportunities there that we could explore to expand our horizon a little bit? Because we're limited in terms.
There's one piece of property that's a logical fit. It hasn't been annexed yet, which is below the Deer Springs piece. That's a unincorporated Wasatch piece, belonging to Bart Warner, who would, had at times come forward and thought about things they wanted to do there. But that's one piece. It's not super large.
Can you?
If you look at the north end of town, that the Deer Springs annexation is sort of a A-frame type A shape. And so the hole at the bottom of the A where the bar crosses, that's a piece of property that is available to be to consider annexing.
I just want to
really
mention, Mayor, that there's wetlands down there, sensitive lands as well.
Yeah. So that's, but I'm not saying it'd be right for commercial. I'm just saying, other than that, there's really on the south side of town, there's a bit of land between Hideout and the end of Wasatch County to the Camas side of Golden Eagle. There's a few pieces in there. They're small, but they're, the landowner in there has expressed interest in working with Hideout because he's got land that is in Hideout, in Wasatch, and in Summit, all contiguous. And so for him to do anything, he has to go to 3 agencies right now. He would love to work with us to get it down to 1. So there might be something there. But again, the landowner also has ideas of what they want to do with it. So, but other than that, Ralph, there's nothing really
glaring. Yeah, I hear
directly
you.
contiguous.
Yeah.
Dave Merrill has talked to Thomas and I about a proposed development, and I learned recently that Dave sold back his 30 acres to the master developer. So that was not.
That's unfortunate. Okay.
So I just lost my screen. I can hear everybody. That was just interesting. Are you guys still there?
We are.
We're here.
Okay. Yeah, I totally lost my screen. It went blank.
So the other thing I can tell you, Ralph, is that the land between the end of Hideout and Tuhey, Rustler and Tuhey, that has been purchased by a group who's got a project in front of Wasatch County to move that forward in there. They are going to pave the road at the end of Rustler to Tuhey and put in a subdivision in there. So that's being talked about as, although it's not finally approved, being talked about is essentially more residential housing. So, and then you get to Tuhey, and then you're into Summit. And so the annexation process, as you cross into Summit, as we know, is a lot more complicated. So, other than, and then the stuff around the Jordanelle north side and wrapping is all MIDA now. So really, there's very little left that inside Wasatch that becomes potential for anything. There's some stuff up at Browns Canyon that again is being, or at the Browns Canyon Jordanelle entrance that some developers are working with Wasatch County on now. It might bring some commercial to them. I don't know that they'd be interested in being in Hideout or not.
Does anybody know what's happening with the market?
I do, and they're in negotiations with Wasatch County, and the county is, they're requiring them to do things that they don't necessarily want to do. So they're, negotiating. So what the county wants them to do is going to require them to reduce the size of the market from what they'd like it to be. And so they're trying to find ways to not do that. That's why it's in limbo at the moment.
Okay, so we've covered kind of what is still developable and where we may or may not have options. So if we're going back to the 112 acre proposed Boulder area, currently it's entitled for how many units? Thomas, I know it's 1 unit per acre, but how many could they actually put there?
So by the time you take out, sensitive lands, rights of way, that kind of thing, it could be maybe 85 to 100. We don't really know. Okay.
And so that's a familiar number, right, for us? Because if you think about homes being fairly spread apart, an acre of land, right, Thomas, with the lots, I mean, you could think of it that way as 85 1 acre homes. So it would be more, it's currently entitled for that kind of residential development. So let's just start there as a basis point. If a developer or the owner came in and was wanting to build that, they would be allowed under our current zoning. They would just have to follow our current. They would have to follow our current land management code. And, if they followed everything as written, they could build what they wanted, as long as it conformed. And so that should be our baseline where we're starting from, I think. And then if a landowner, wants to do something more, then we should be prepared, with this vision in this kind of session that we're doing. What would we want? What would the town be looking for in order to, grant that additional density, or, allow for, text amendments or amendments to our current code, for whether it's for building heights or setbacks, or the amount of, the various variations that could come out. What we want, what would make it appealing for us to allow such things? What is it that we're looking for, knowing that, there's only so much that we can actually get because we're so entitled already. What would we be looking for? And what would make it, a good win-win situation for a landowner and the town and the town residents? What would make that work for us?
Yeah.
So I can start the discussion. I haven't thought super hard about it today, but I know we're still looking to preserve a certain natural beauty here, right? So natural landscapes, view sheds, sensitive lands, things that were part of the general plan. And Thomas, I don't know if you can continue to display, but it'd be really helpful if we could look at those charts.
Yep, I was just pulling those up.
That would be great. Thank you. You know, I'm working from memory, and my memory's not so good right now. So I know we want community connectivity. We want gathering spaces, public spaces. These are kinds of the kinds of things that we're lacking right now. And you know, what does that mean for us? Because I think different people have a different vision what a public space is. Parks, what's a park? Is a park simply a piece of open space, or is it actually you know, some flat grassy area, or does it have, you know, what is a park? So I think those are the kinds of things we should be thinking about. And I know we can't get everything right, but we should think about what we really think the town character should end up looking like at the end game, you know, when all of the developable land is entitled. So if we could try to vision out what we want that to look like, and then try to reach at least much of that vision as we can. So Thomas, at the beginning there were
the tables.
Yeah. I think they're really informative because it's a good summary. And by the way, the class at BYU who did this, you know, under the direction of their professor, as well as they got a ton of input from the town. You know, this is a really good general plan. I was really delighted at the quality at the very end, because it was quite a process to get here. But, you know, goal number 1 has a number of parts, right? Thank you, land use. Thank you, Thomas. So as I already mentioned, preserving view sheds and green space and the unique topography. So, you know, we are a mountainous area. Do we want to scrape off the top of hillsides and put a bunch of houses on it? Or do we want to try to continue that mountainous feel? You know, those are just some things to consider with, you know, the land that's not yet entitled, or where we have a proposal in front of us to be considering. So, I mean, these are the things that the public told us they wanted. We didn't make this stuff up. This came up through multiple public input sessions, the survey, and you know, with a ton of feedback from the folks that participated at the time in 2019, which didn't include some of you, but it's all really important. If you look at the next, sorry, I have to look really close at my screen, so I turn my camera off so you wouldn't see my face in it. Manage the intensity of land use. In other words, you know, clear vision for the levels of density. You can say, I mean, if you're looking at Shoreline, the multiple phases that are close to the park, that is super dense. I mean, do you look down there and all you see are rooftops versus other parts of the community where there's more space between the residential buildings and you know, so what are we trying to do in terms of density?
Thomas, do you have the acreage amount of what Shoreline is doing as the public amenities, like where they're going to put in the swimming pool and rec center? Do you know how much land that is?
The area that will have the community amenities?
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head. It's not been finalized. All we've had is a preliminary plat from 2017. So we roughly know the area, but if I were to make a guess, it's got, I think they had proposed like a splash pad, a little community center, community facility, a pool, some other amenities. I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 acres. Don't quote me on that, but it was kind of tucked into that corner down at the southwestern tip. It's a picture phase.
Well, and then the question, that begs to be answered is who has access to those? Are those HOA only? Or are we talking about public? Because, our vision statement here with the general plan, we don't really mention, as I recall in here, private amenities. We're talking about town amenities, public amenities, things that residents, visitors, or people from wherever, might be able to come and participate and enjoy. Like when we talk about parks and trails, nobody's, scanning you into a building or scanning you in to let you into the park because, you live here and we want to keep everyone else out. I don't think that's what this vision says at all. I think that this vision is really about beauty, open space, public spaces, controlling density, making sure we're keeping a more natural environment. So that's kind of what this vision is. So as much as I would love to have like a pool, is it for the HOA? Am I going to be able to drive down there and park and use it or not? Or is it just for the folks that can walk there from, is that really meeting the need of the visioning that we're trying to do at a town level? And it might be very nice for the HOA or that local community. But is it part of what we're trying to achieve here with the town?
When I first saw the Boulders project, I envisioned commercial right around the existing estate and then everything else open, like at, say, Round Valley or something. Just trails and open, and that's what I envisioned. And I guess that's kind of what I would like to see.
So in other words, for trading an increased density, you would like to see it all clustered together, right? And then lots of open space, and that open space being usable is what you're thinking. When I say usable, whether it's not just you can see through it or past it or into it, but that you can actually go into it through a trail or some mechanism and recreate or that's what I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think our real problem is that it's going to be hard to ever get a developer to develop it without high density, because that's how they make their profit. And I kind of feel like we're stuck.
Well, we're not. We have it zoned. We
cannot develop it. I mean, we can just develop it with the 85 houses and leave it at that. But,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's our baseline.
Right. But to do anything beyond that, I think it's going to be hard to get a developer willing to really do much. And that also, I kind of have a concern about the residential area up near the park, the commercial area that we were saying up near the park. If it's only like 10 acres, how do you get a developer who's willing to actually build anything there if they can't make a profit without building a huge development? Seems like the only way we could possibly do that is if we work with the developers that are already developing the land around us, like Brockton. But
yeah, I'll just that's a great point, Rachel. I'll just say that we were able to get a much needed public works building, right, as a negotiation by annexing in the Deer Springs subdivision. And there was a negotiation there. We got something we really, really needed and really value. So and beside that, we got a really great connection up to the Jordanelle Parkway. So, you know, Hideout people don't have to get on the highway anymore, at least if you're on the lakeside of the highway. You know, you can drive over to the new Mayflower Resort or over to Deer Valley's, you know, back entrance without going on the highway. You know, you can jump on a bike or, you know, go take a walk through a different neighborhood without going on a highway. That was a really big win for us, I thought, when we agreed to annex that in. But we didn't simply annex it in by, you know, taking the proposal at face value that we got. We went through a pretty long negotiation to get some things that the town very much needs. So what I think we need to do is identify what the additional things that we think the town very much needs, and try to see if those are possible. In, you know, if we are going to give away an increase in density.
Right. Yeah.
So one other thing we haven't talked about. So all those things are, yeah, I think there's a lot in the tables, going back to what you're saying, Chris, totally agree. I think there, we identified a lot of and extracted a lot and summarized a lot. And I do remember, you know, it was not an electronic survey that we did, but we got a lot of good information, really good information. A lot of people participated, wasn't in a totally unbiased way, but, you know, certainly there was a lot of good information. I think there might be some information that changed in the last 3 years, given, if you look at the census, the numbers that we're growing at are really significant, you know, based upon the report that Jan just sent around. But the other side is, could we go into a public-private partnership where we're economically involved? Could we bond that piece of property? What are our options financially? So it puts us in control of this last segment of the land, and where we're really more partners with the developers as opposed to being kind of byproducts of their vision, so to speak. So do we
Are you
have
talking
any-
about the boulders? I mean, you have a current application in front of you, so I don't think you can start talking about public part, you know, that's not what's on the table here. I think you can talk about high level, like what type of development do you want to see there, but it's not fair to the developers to start talking about a whole other thing. I mean, the application you have is the application you have. You have legislative discretion to decide. I mean, this is a complete discretionary distance. Right. But
So,
I wouldn't start talking about public-private type things. That's not land use. That's, you know, more economic. And I don't think that that's fair to the developer.
Well, and I wasn't thinking just boulders here. So I was just thinking in general, just because I think we're, to Chris's point, we're looking at discussing what do we want?
Right. So that, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, sorry, I did put that into the context, but you know, just in general then, what have we explored options from that general standpoint of public-private financing, what the town could do with a bond issue? We have that on the survey. So have we explored options in that direction in general?
Not in a big way, Ralph. I mean, we have talked about multiple occasions. We've talked about working to procure land to do the things we want to do. So the problem with that is that we haven't done what I'd like to see come out of this as a minimum tonight is a small working committee to put together the spaces, the review of the spaces that we have some influence over, as far as the things that have been granted through Shoreline and Claim and Deer Springs and Deer Waters and the amenities that are proposed to come, some additional pockets of land that we have access to, like the town land on both sides of the road, the Frisbee property, which hasn't been developed yet, and what you might want to see there, etc. And then also what parcels in that remain in Hideout that haven't been sold to private owners, and saying, or even if they have, if we had the opportunity to buy a lot on the corner of whatever and use it differently than put a house on it, what would we want to do with that? And there's some undeveloped stuff along the frontage of Longview Drive, between Chris's house and her street and Rustler, for example. So there may be some, that would we want to use that differently. There's a lot, there's a kind of a funky lot, a few places that might make sense that we might want to use. So that we need to kind of look at that and say, if we wanted to do this, and this, how would we execute that? Would we bond it? Would we go find somebody who wants to work with us? I don't know. I think we've yet to put a comprehensive map together.
What is the economic development team doing? Are they looking at that or no?
That was the first thing that we were tackling, was to get an inventory of town property or property that is developable. And then the discussions that we had in the committee was, could we, it was more or less focused on, can we have a conversation with a potential business person that might be enticed to, cooperate on a common theme. And there were a number of those, from a few stores up in the area in the corner, of the Jordanelle Parkway. What could we do with that? Could we talk with it? And that's kind of where we got, but starting from an inventory. So we very much wanted to collect all possible property data, but there wasn't a lot. And I think, Mayor, you bringing up a couple of others. So I don't know if we did a full exhaustive inventory, but we did do kind of the primary 2 acres here. That's that's right off the two sides of the Jordanelle Parkway, Jordanelle entrance there. That was provided to the town. So there's, I think, a total of 4 acres. Jan, correct me, or Thomas, correct me on if I'm wrong on that. But those were the 2 most likely, but not a lot of others. There was 1.5 acres across the highway, and then but we didn't see too much else in our inventory, unless, Thomas, you have a more exacting inventory that you can share with us right here. Maybe that would be a really good idea to go through that inventory.
We don't have a more exhaustive inventory for town within the community. You and I, Ralph, had talked a little bit about possibilities around the community for annexation, and the mayor, I think, outlined some of probably the lower hanging fruit, right? And so there's not a lot. So I think you are all on the right track of thinking about working within what we do have, because that's the only known entity that we can deal with. The others are arguably speculative, right?
I do know, for example, a town hall. Where could we put a town hall that we own, and we would have freely use of? Community center, town hall. That's, I think, high up there on priorities. I mean, what does everyone else think?
I'll step in. That's always been a high priority for me. And I will volunteer to be on a committee to meet with Jan, with our mayor, whoever I need to meet with, to actually plot on a map all the available possibilities, as well as what has been promised to us by developers. I mean, down the road, I know GCD has some things that they have told us they will give us, as has Nate. And I think we need to show all of these on a map and say, okay, here's you know, here are some potential sites for a park, for I know there was minimum commercial going in that GCD had promised us. So we need to collate all of that to get it together and then show it on a map and say, okay, this is what the town's looking at. I mean, that's my feeling. I'm happy to serve on the committee. I've got lots of time. I can come to the office every day if I need to work on it. So
Carol, I agree with you. That's my goal as well.
Okay.
Carol and Mayor, I agree. And Thomas and I have set up some planning charrettes, which that has been a target of our intention from since pre-COVID. And I believe we need to involve the community in looking at the inventory and maximizing the space, both in what it serves to give the town in terms of amenities as well as fiscal benefit. And I think we are very well on the way with this survey, as well as charrettes that we are planning to incorporate as small 30-minute input sessions.
And just along that line, Carol, anybody who is wanting to join that group, let me know. I am more than happy to help in any way. But really, I just want to let you all know that we're pretty close to detailing what is owed us. We do have in our parks, open space and trails plan, the post plan, we know exactly what developers owe us, and we know where our shortcomings are, i.e. our lack of connectivity. But in terms of parks, et cetera, really what we do have is this area right here in Deer Waters, and it's a pickleball courts and a little park, and that is being built by Nate right now. That's underway. That should be done midsummer. We do have, come on, computer. We do also have the Shoreline area that you guys asked about a little bit earlier, which is basically a pool, amphitheater, sports court, splash pad. That would go into this area. And then we also have, I mentioned earlier, Deer Springs, formerly phase 4, now phase 3. There will be the subdivision brought in, submitted, I'm sorry, probably in July to the Planning Commission. And that does include the park space that will be required to be built upon completion of phase 3 before they can go on to phase 4. So you're going to see Deer Waters pickleball courts probably this summer. You'll probably see Deer Springs open space and park amenities late summer, early next summer. Shoreline's a little bit down the road, but you will see all of that go in. This area here, just Carol, so you know, would likely also be where there could be some of those commercial amenities that you were discussing. So it'd be right around this area. Again, that
Thomas?
subdivision hasn't come in yet.
Yeah, Thomas, I think we talked to Glenn about that, and I think he wanted to move, I had suggested he move the commercial closer to Shoreline Drive.
Right. Yeah, I remember
And
that.
he is considering that. So it
Right.
could end up coming a little bit more up into this area.
Right.
Yep. We just don't have any submittals yet. All we're working off of right now is the preliminary subdivision from 17, I think.
But it's a pretty limited amount of space. It's only like
Yeah.
4 acres, right? 4 acres. It's
small.
tiny. It's tiny.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. I did not know that there was some commercial opportunity with Shoreline down lower, and it's good that if he's considering moving it closer to, higher traffic areas.
Yeah, exactly. Out of the residential area and closer to the road,
Makes sense.
the main road.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, like Thomas was saying, the post committee and the plan that we've adopted, has all of this. But I do think it's a great idea, Carol, with the committee you're on, to review everything, make sure we only have as many pickleball courts as we need, not too many. We only have as many amphitheaters You know, I don't know how many amphitheaters one town needs. I would say one.
Just need one?
I would say one.
Right.
Yep. I mean, there might be a playground. I would say one, right? And or maybe zero, right? Because we don't have any children to speak
That's
of.
right.
And we're not going to get any children because there's not going to be an elementary school anywhere near here for quite some time. So I just think we've got to think about what our demographics are, what we want them to be, and what we think can be sustainable here. So I think, you know, we've pretty well established ourselves as with the exception of the existing Deer Mountain affordable apartments, which are hugely important to the general area. The rest of the town is either primary or secondary homes for, you know, people who are, you know, on the upper end of the middle class, well, you know, more well off, able to afford the incredible exorbitant prices right now. But that's who we have here, and that's who we are now.
We're empty nesters.
And we are. There's a lot of gray hair here, including my own. But there's, you know, that's who we are right now. And I don't know how we're going to become more of a diverse community with, you know, we've got we have diversity in terms of ages and you know, and ethnic backgrounds and things, but really ultimately that diversity is, you know, isn't widespread throughout. I don't know what we're trying to be beyond who we already are. Maybe we need to just accept who we are. Maybe we are a bedroom community where people are willing to pay higher taxes and have the services they want and have the parks they want, and, you know, make sure the roads are in great condition at all times. Maybe that's what the community wants. That's why I'm happy we're going to be sending out a survey, but I want to make sure that surveying that we're doing to get additional input for things that might have changed since we did this last general plan, that we're taking into account what we have already started to become.
Did the survey end with a question about anyone else having any additional input other than answering the questions?
What was that?
Did the survey give space for people to add their own comment?
I think
we can certainly do
we
that.
can add
We can
a
have
comment
it
box
open-ended.
at the end.
That's a
we
good
can have
idea.
a comment box, no problem. That's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Or even to volunteer to be on a committee.
There you go.
That would be a good place to, you know, say we have openings in these committees.
Yeah, be involved in your community.
So it has to be totally voluntary because we've said this is a anonymous survey. So if you say I sign up, then you know what their answers are. So it might not be the right place to put that question.
Well, you can always direct them to our website and just say, hey, by the way, if you're interested, just sign up on our website and here's the link. I had one question for Alicia and for this. So I know when I did my survey prior to the referendum, I think I had 99 names and I got about 60 surveys back. How many, obviously I'm not looking for an exact count, but what is our count right now approximately of the number of surveys that will go out? Just to get a broad number of, are we approaching certainly a higher number than that? And so the survey gets, survey has to be certainly an electronic survey, because the one that we did previously agreed, we got input, but it wasn't very a digital exacting survey. So what are the numbers, Alicia? Do you know?
Sure. Yeah. So we have about 300 names on our email list. And then I was also going to put a link on the website. I was just trying to figure out exactly how that would work so we don't have multiple people answering many times,
Well, you can do that with SurveyMonkey and Qualtrics. So you can force that they only do it once. And that's what we should do. You don't want one person submitting 9 surveys in their favor. So I'm hoping we're policing that piece. Otherwise, it would not be a very, quantitative, well-done survey. But the numbers, if we got 300, that's decent. If we got, again, like I got, which was about a 60% response, and the numbers that did come in profiled exactly what the referendum came out at. So, I think obviously the larger the sample, the better. So that's what I meant. That's the only reason I'm at 300 is pretty good though. That's great.
Ralph, we have a little over 500 units, of which 170 are the apartments. So, 350.
Yep.
So
That's
330 is probably, everybody else but the apartments. So and that matches our utility usage. Now that's units, that's not people.
Yeah.
So there's, we have contacts for the utility users, which may be a household of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, but we don't have the ability to reach out to every member of every household. So that's got to come from. We can encourage the households to have other people enter.
No, I agree. That was a problem I ran into as well, because it'd be so-and-so and so-and-so at, gmail.com or something, or you knew that you're only getting one member of household because only one member volunteered to put their email as, so I think over time, as we do these surveys, I don't want to drill into the surveys so much, but the better numbers we have, so maybe, advertise that, so to speak, to put your name in if you want to vote on these surveys, and you're separate than your husband or your spouse or your wife or whatever that might be, that, we get that input, because that 2 people in the same household may disagree on certain items. And I think
so Ralph, hopefully in the middle of this month, we're expecting to have the new app running. And that'll allow every user who downloads the app to have their own input platform.
Yep. That's even better.
One thing I would volunteer to do, if you're interested, I could make up a really quick flyer and go deliver it to the apartments with the QR code to the Survey Monkey survey, just because I am going off of the utility list. And so, since they don't get our water through, they don't have a water bill per se, then,
right.
We may not have their email. So that would be a good idea to include the folks at the apartments.
Agree.
If you'd like.
Okay. And the folks at the apartments, they're generally renters, correct?
Yep.
So they don't pay the taxes.
Right.
Right.
But they have
really apply.
They have a right to vote.
Correct. I just was.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Does our list cover people who may not be full-time residents but are nevertheless homeowners?
Yes, if you have a home with a utility bill, you have water, sewer, connected to your home, then it covers them, even if they only here part-time.
Because obviously, at least in my neighborhood, we have about 50-60% part-time ownership, and we'd want to make sure we cover them as well.
Yeah, we do cover them if they're hooked up to our system.
And we have the question which says, are you a
empty landowners as well? Generally are paying a water fee, so we have a connection for them as well. So even though they're not hooked up to the water system directly, they're paying a standby fee. Many of the single lots. So we have a reasonably good breadth of resident contact.
I was actually going to ask about that, if you wanted me to send it to the landowners and the building owners. Okay. So if we up it to landowners as well, we've got about 600 emails.
And if they answer the question, are they full-time residents or part-time residents, then we can delineate that piece right up
We
front.
can add a landowner as a third option.
That
Next
might be a
survey.
good idea.
Thomas, I think this goes to Thomas. He might know the answer. I do have a question. You said that the Shoreline recreation area is down the road. Do we have any estimation on that?
I think isn't it down, it abuts the state property down there.
Correct.
I think you're asking two independent questions. One is a timing question, one is a location question, I think.
Correct.
So from a
I
location.
was timing.
That's
I thought you were saying location, sorry.
And from a location perspective, Glynis is right. Right now on the preliminary plan, it's kind of down toward the state line. I do think, or the state park line. I do think that it's probably gonna potentially move up closer to Shoreline. GCD's kind of entertaining that, but we don't have any detailed information or platting yet. With regard to its timing, we also don't know exactly what phase that would be. We kind of guesstimate there could be as many as 9 phases for Shoreline. We're not exactly sure, but it'd probably be in the middle of those phases. We're at number 3 now, so maybe 5, 6, 7, maybe. I mean, there might be an inclination to put it on the 6, 7, phase 6, 7 side, just to get more people in there so that there's a user group, but we don't really have a timeline yet.
Wow, okay.
The last time I understood, I thought it was supposed to be phase 4.
Around phase 5 or 6, but he wanted to go out of sequence for a reason in regard to running the power and stuff. So he was putting that on the back burner way back when we approved the plat.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Huh. All right.
So GCD is a joint venture with Martino, and I think it's becoming increasingly important for us to reach out and to work collaboratively in any method that we can. We're way overdue in creating some workable relationships with Martino. And I think all of us collectively should think of ways that we can connect in some way. And I know Thomas and I have brainstormed on that. Sherry and I have brainstormed on that. I've talked to Will. We have a breakfast meeting next week, but I think it's becoming incredibly important to work that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I, for one, am a big believer in collaboration. I'd be willing to volunteer to further that along. I think the better relationship we have with all of the developers, the more likely it is that we're going to have a better outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think we have better opportunities for good relationships when we can talk face to face or directly with the developers themselves. Currently, we're going through attorneys with Mustang, and that's how we communicate. So I don't know how to get past that and have that face to face, if you will, with that particular developer, because I think we have made good, we've developed improved and sometimes good relationships with the other developers with whom, the town is able to sit down with and, have these conversations and come to agreements, that are, win-wins, and, it's not all protracted through kind of legal methods and negotiations, things like that. So I don't actually know what we can do, and maybe somebody else on this call has an idea, but I mean, I think we've tried so many things to get through to, the original master developer directly. And I don't actually know how we can improve that, in our current situation.
In my experience, one way to approach that would be, and this is used amongst litigants all the time, is you have an informal, off the record, face-to-face conversation in which everyone agrees, and potentially in writing, that nothing that is said or done during the meeting would come out in any type of litigation. And that opens up the door to people feeling a little more comfortable with having a conversation because they know nothing they say or do will come back to haunt them. That's something that's used in litigation all the time. I don't know these individuals, but that is one potential approach.
So one challenge, sorry guys, one challenge is that we are currently involved in litigation with Mustang on a number of fronts. And I think we'll find that as long as there's litigation in progress, they're not going to be willing to talk about anything else. And you're certainly welcome to try, but I suspect that will be the answer.
I think the key to that would be that nothing that is said during the conversation would find its way into use by either side in any litigation. And that kind of assurance might open the door. It may not, but it might be worth a shot.
Well, one thing that was really helpful to me to get to know the developer, and again, Mustang may be very different, was when we met with Nate Broadbank and we did a site visit, and I really felt like I gained a lot of information that way, was able to talk to him one-on-one, got to know him a little bit. It just was really helpful. I would love to do a site visit, maybe up at Golden Eagle, to see what's going up there, on there. Look at the land. I don't know if that would be a possibility. Just to have a conversation, like you said, off the record, but hey, let's take a look around. What's going on? What do you have to offer? How can we make this a win-win situation? Win-win area, he wants to sell his homes. We want to see what he has to offer and what types of variety, things like that. Just to open up a conversation. Just an idea.
I think COVID's kind of made us all a little too distant, not interacting in person with each other. And the same thing with our getting to know the developers. We could actually do some more site visits. It would definitely benefit everyone, I think.
I'd be willing to try to spearhead something like that if a decision was made that it's appropriate.
Well, I'm gonna let Paulie talk about that, but if you were going not as a representative of town necessarily, but as a representative of interested homeowners or landowners or residents, not the municipality, they might be open to chatting with you.
Right.
If you're going as a representative of the municipality, then I don't think you're going to get anywhere.
We'll know till we try.
Yeah, and I would just say that if you do go, then and you're just meeting with non-lawyers, then that's okay. But if you're going to go and have their lawyers there, then you should have someone from our legal team there. But again, I think it's good to give out that olive branch. As I said, the town can't survive without Mustang, and Mustang can't survive without the town. And there's a lot of reasons for us to work together. And we should, hopefully both sides should be moving towards that. But I can't say whether they'll meet with us or not. We've got 2 pending lawsuits right now.
Once again, informal and off the record, if necessary, reduced to writing, might alleviate some of those concerns. Because if I were representing, a litigant, I'd say no way without such an understanding and agreement. So it's a common tool in litigation. Whether or not that would work here, is unknown till you try.
Hey, Jonathan, I just want to say, before the litigation, was initiated, we still had trouble, with any kind of face-to-face meetings. I can't recall the last time the master HOAs, the last time we had maybe somebody remembers, but I can't remember the last time we had an annual meeting of the HOA. I don't.
They had one. They had one, Chris. They have one every year. They have to by law, and they did have one. It was Zoom based, but they had one.
Oh, I don't think I got notification of that.
I think that was over a year ago.
Yeah, I don't know when the last one was. I usually try to attend, but that's just it's. I'm just trying to say, Jonathan, we would love to sit down and have a good face-to-face conversation, with the master developer, or the HOA that the master developer is chairman of the board over. And we would love that. We would absolutely love that, and be able to have a good conversation. I think if you're successful doing that, then I will tip my hat, and I hope that you would be. But
sometimes mounting litigation bills have a tendency to soften people's recalcitrant positions. Sometimes not, but again, if a decision, if the decision and authorization were going in that direction, I would be happy to try to spearhead that, sure. But not without that going through Polly and the mayor and whoever else is appropriate.
And so
could I suggest? Oh, sorry. I just was going to suggest that maybe we refocus on kind of the work session of the high level policy, more land use plan, absolutely. All that.
That's right where I was going, Polly. That's right where I was going. In when we were talking about developers and how we can work with them and making sure that the promised, the things that were been promised or we're getting. So whether that's a park, a trail, a pickleball court. I mean, we're talking about all the developers. I know we did just kind of veer off on a tangent, but I think we're back to, how can we map out all of these things that are promised to us and what they are, and as the mayor had said earlier, we've got more than one developer promising a pickleball court. How many pickleball courts do we need? Let's see if that can become something else, because as the mayor was saying earlier, the developer may not care what he spends his money on. It's the same amount of money whether the amenity is a court or a field or a playground or something. So I do think we should head back to that. And there are amenities that are supposed to be going in, Golden Eagle as well. I believe there's a trail network that's supposed to go up there. Even though it's a private trail network, it is supposed to be a trail network. Same thing, connecting over to a Soaring Hawk. We want communities to be connected. And that's some of the stuff that we need to, I think we need to map out and pursue. Mm-hmm. So I think we left it with Carol volunteering.
I'd like some other volunteers.
Well, I think we need a small committee. It has to include Thomas. It has to include Jan.
Right.
I don't need to be involved just because I probably know more about the available pieces than many folks. So I can probably bring some insight there.
So Mayor, how many council members can be on this committee? If you're on it, one or two more council members?
Two
more council members? Okay. And then other than that, it's just open. As many planning commissioners, I think, is wanted volunteer or other community members.
Yeah, well, if it's 20 people, we're gonna take it out we need a working team, and then it can broaden. I don't think we can put 20 people in a room I think we want to put a strong model together with what we know, and then we can, at least is what the spaces are, not necessarily what goes in them, and then we can start to get input.
Okay.
I think we don't need a big group to just get the pieces of dirt and the amount of space allocated or potential space allocated.
So-
I think that's the smaller group.
Can the four of you all do it then? Do you need anybody else? When I
For
say
that first
four,
phase,
yeah.
I don't think we need, Thomas, do you think we need anyone else?
I think we can do it, get the information put together as a working group and get it out to all y'all.
Okay.
Yeah.
When do we start?
I guess I'd like one person from the planning commission as well as Carol.
I'll do it. It's Tony. I'll do it.
Okay. It's Tony.
Okay. So are we going to meet tomorrow morning?
If we are, we're doing it. I'm doing it by Zoom because I'm still in COVID quarantine.
Right. I know. I'm so sorry for you, Mayor. You don't sound yourself.
Believe me, believe me, compared to 2 days ago, I am fantastic.
Oh, great.
Mm.
Oh,
I was ready to dial 911.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was really, really sick.
Wow.
So,
Well, yeah, I'm glad you're feeling a little bit better. One thing I just want to give my 2 cents in about pickleball courts is that it is a majorly growing sport around here and everywhere. So it's like, I want to take it up. So I was looking at how many pickleball courts there were going to be in, and I was thinking, I'm not sure that's going to be enough.
Well, Donna, let me just add, do you want them clustered together or do you want one here, one there, one there?
I think
how?
I think they were doing 2 or 3 clusters together, and I think that's what you want, or like 4 together, like they have over at Willow Creek. I think there's 4 together there, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think it's good to have in a couple different developments to have them around. I mean, because I don't think 3 or 2 or 4 really is that much.
You know, I could argue.
It's the amphitheater.
Can I just say something, Kara? Donna, you can set up a pickleball court if you have a flat driveway in your own yard, right? You don't necessarily, it's not tennis. It's not tennis.
Not
right?
in my little driveway.
So, but my point is, we should be really thinking about that, because pickleball is cool now. Maybe it'll be the greatest thing ever for the next 20 years, but maybe it won't. Maybe it'll, people will find something else, invent something else.
Information, you cannot get a court at PC Mark because they are all reserved by the Park City Pickleball Club.
I mean, it's not popular. I know.
It is, yeah.
I mean, in Heber, they're building 8 more. They got grants to build 8 more courts to bring a total of 16 outdoors. Oakley last year got a grant to build 8 outdoors. So,
well, Tony,
South Summit's always booked as well.
That's a good thing. So, are we trying to build pickleball courts that are public and bookable by a pickleball club that's in another town, or are we trying to build pickleball courts where the residents, have a basically empty court except when they want to go out there and play?
So the residents don't have to go to the other places to play. We could play here. So, I mean, yes, it's for that. I mean, I would love it for the residents. No, it's for us. I mean, I really think, and we get a lot more people, part-timers coming back in the summer. My neighbors who are going to be here for the summer now from Houston. They're going to be, middle of May, they're coming for the summer, and, they play pickleball. So, I think that's one thing I just, want to put out there. But one thing I want to say, amphitheaters, you're right. I don't think we need an amphitheater in every single development. That's just my another 2 cents. But I just wanted to make that publicly clear in our public group here.
And then how are we going to use the amphitheater? Are we going to have a Friday night concert that we sponsor, or is it just going to be a place where people hang out when they're walking their dog? Let's try to think about that.
I would love to answer that question. So we have Mountain Town Music that right now we have a concert that is going to happen out in front of somebody's house here in Shoreline. We've been doing it during COVID, and it'd be really nice to have an amphitheater for that. But I don't think we need an amphitheater in every single development in Hideout. So, I mean, that was my point. But I think the amphitheater, at least two of them in our town would be beneficial.
Yeah, and so,
But not 4 or 5 or 6.
I agree. One properly sized amphitheater with enough parking and
Right.
then a use beyond being, a concert venue, which is not going to be every night.
Right.
We've got to think about things like that. What do you use the amphitheater for if nobody's there? Is it going to have grass on it so that it's a green space?
Right.
So that it looks nice instead of just being a bunch of concrete? Or,
Right.
what is it supposed to be when it's in use as a concert venue or a lecture? I don't know what would be out there, or maybe a
Farmers
outdoor
market.
yoga class, but what would it be when nobody's at it and in it? What do we want it to be? Is it supposed to be park-like? So these are the kinds of things we should be thinking about.
I like
think
outdoor
back to being a
yoga.
teen- if I think back to being a teenager, I know what I used it for. You probably
Yeah,
don't
I
want
know.
that.
I know. You go there, you get away from your parents, you smoke something, you hang out, whatever. What do we want it to be? I don't think we want it to be a teenage hangout when it's not being used as an amphitheater. So, I don't know. These are the kinds of things I think when we map these amenities out, we have to try to think clearly, not just the happy path about what it's used for when it's, when there's a concert or
A
something.
sledding hill. A sledding hill in the winter.
Well, no kidding. That would be pretty awesome. Bring your grandkids out and have fun. But, you don't have to build a sledding hill in your own yard then, which we've done in the past. But, so that's a great idea. That's really a great idea, Donna, for the winter use for this space. So that's the kind of stuff I think when we map out these amenities, we should try to be thinking of.
So we have, we have a very professional planner as part of our team. That professional planner has contacts to a whole world of planning and data. And there's a whole bunch of data out there that says for a community of X size, you would typically have X% space. You'd have this many ball courts, this many gathering spots, whatever. I mean, there's a bunch of data we can use to get some benchmarking around, what would be an ideal number for a range of sizes for this stuff. So we don't have to make it up ourselves.
That's great.
So we just have to reach out to the right organ portions of the planning world because that data exists for residential planning development kind of stuff. Lots of people who use that benchmark stuff because for every 30 houses there's 1 court, 2 parks, and a partridge in a pear tree.
I think that's great. And I missed the first part. I didn't quite hear you. What was where is this professional planner besides Thomas Eddington?
I can pull that information together. There are standards for both
Okay.
planning and a landscape architecture perspective. There are park standards, and I can pull the metrics for you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we got a committee. So that was one of your objectives tonight, Mayor, right?
Yeah, so we have a committee, and then we need a second committee, which is once we have the standards. So the committee is going to say these are the spaces we have. These are the spaces you could potentially get our hands on, and then we have to sit down and say, given these possible scenarios, and here are the metrics that Thomas can bring us. How do you want to apply those against the general plan and say, okay, we've got 30 acres or whatever it is, and we want pickleball courts and parks and this and that and whatever. That we need some additional help with. So we'll certainly collect names from this group and others who want to help with, now that we have sort of a picture of possibilities, how do we want to use them?
Yeah, and then also what remains that we really feel like we must try to somehow gain
Right.
as a what's the delta?
Yep. So that needs to follow on fairly quickly. So anybody who has an interest in working on that part of it, you would submit your names to, I don't know, Thomas, do you mind?
That's good. Send it my way.
Send it Thomas's way, and we'll have a list of another 10 names or something that we can pull together for the next round.
And is this meeting that we're having like right now, is it something that could be done quarterly or maybe more regularly? And maybe it has a theme, like, before I volunteered for planning commission, I went through the general plan. But I don't know how many other planning commission members have gone through the general plan. So, maybe just a high level of that, or like a learning experience. And I don't know if it's just the planning commission that does this or if it's in combination with the town council.
Well, Glynis, I'll just say that I was there when the general plan was created. I do think Ralph brought it up earlier, a couple of years have passed. I think it would be a great idea if the planning commission took a look at the general plan to see, if they notice anything that might be different now, things that we might want to consider in the future if we were to do a general plan amendment. I think it would be a great idea for the planning commission to take a look at that and, review it together. And like I said, provide, recommendations if you see anything that where we may have changed since, because we have a lot more people here now than when we wrote that original general plan. A lot more residents, a lot more development happening rapidly. You might find you want to reinforce certain things in there that we're losing, right, with all this development.
Yep.
Or maybe.
So let me suggest that there's no issue with that. As far as doing it, I think we ought to get through this little bit that we just talked about, because that's going to give you some input to the general plan, right? So when you look at what we have and what we have access to, and say, okay, knowing that, we would want to modify the general plan to be more aggressive on capturing additional land for this stuff or whatever. So I think just let's get the cart and the horse in the right order there.
Yeah, oh, certainly.
As far as having quarterly sessions, do you guys think it's valuable? I'm all for it. It's fine. I think it's good that the planning commission and the council have a chance to interact.
I also thought, coming into this meeting that we would start looking maybe on a quarterly basis, some topics. I mentioned to you and Jan an email about, trying to understand as a group, the town council, the planning commission, certainly, us, so to speak, more about water rights, whether it affects developers, whether it's conservation. It's clearly something that affects us. I think, understanding regional issues and maybe having a report back. So once a quarter, maybe it's a committee, giving feedback of what they're doing, particularly around, again, those two topics like that. I could think of a half a dozen more topics, but, something where we're also maybe getting someone in. I know we've talked about it at the town council, but some of these like regionalization, water, it really does affect how we plan and how we regionally think. Our growth, at 18% or whatever it is, puts us in the high category. So getting regular survey information, I think, will be important for the next 3 or 4 years because of the rapid growth. But maybe we could have in each of these quarterly sessions something that we're kind of digging into as well. Kind of have a theme for that meeting. Anyway, food for thought.
I would love to see some kind of assessment as to, what is the water availability? At some point, growth could exceed the available water, in which case we have a disaster on our hands. And I guess as we think about how big and how far and how many units are going to go forward in a global sense, I think we need to understand what there's a barrier, there are a restriction at some point, and maybe we're only at the 10% level, or maybe we're at the 90, but without knowing just how far we can take growth, I think we're taking some substantial risks with property values.
We have a very detailed group working on that at the moment. We have experts helping us get to the bottom of all of that. We are not allowing anyone to come in without bringing their own water access. So we're trying to pay attention to the right things here. We have some things that need to be clarified with our relationship with JSST. We have legal people working on that, and we anticipate getting to the bottom of it in probably the next couple of months, where we can sit down and tell everybody where we are. Bottom line is we are going to need to buy water at some point and need to get rolling on that.
Right.
That's excellent, because I'd hate to think that the only solution is to grab water out of some supply to the Jordanelle, which would cause the Jordanelle to drop even further, because in that kind of case, we'd be kind of killing off the goose to, and I'd hate to see that.
Yeah, and part of the issue with the Jordanelle is even the aesthetics that it brings into the value of our properties, so to speak. So even if we're subject to agricultural use, which is about 85% of your water use, maybe that's going to agriculture midway. I don't exactly know those details, but I think we should know that. And because the impact is both at a water development and at property value level. So boy, we got to, in terms of my education, I've tried to get some, but I don't feel like I'm really fully properly educated. And Jonathan, I think you're in the same boat that I am. So the sooner the better that we do get some at least some high level education on this.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. We don't get our water from the Jordanelle, correct?
No, but
correct.
The Provo River feeds the Jordanelle, and if somebody's going to snatch, a lot of water out of the Provo, for example, and if that somehow affects the Jordanelle, I think we need to understand the relationship there.
Mm-hmm.
And if it goes down far enough, we're our property values actually decrease. At least that, in my estimation, it would. I'm not a realtor, and but we do have Sherry here who probably give us an opinion on that as well.
So back to talking about meetings. Is there any way we can actually have a follow-up meeting from this meeting? Like maybe, I don't know if we should wait quarterly. What do you think about that? I know we're doing.
I don't think you should do anything more frequent than 60 days.
Oh, no. I'm talking about, what, in a month.
That's more frequent than 60 days.
It would be frequent than what? I didn't hear you.
I'm saying I don't think you should look for anything in less than 2 months.
Okay.
And it's summer, people are going on vacation,
right.
that kind of stuff. Come on.
Right.
You can look for a date, but you won't get the full participation of both parties.
All right.
If you want to do it, it's a working group. It's not everybody has to be at every meeting. That's fine.
It would be good to also have a time frame, like instead of it being open-ended, like 2 hours max, or something like that.
Yes. I'm all for that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I don't have all the details in front of me right now, but there's a meeting that I think it's Wasatch County is holding that's on transportation issues. And it's Tuesday evening. I think it's like 6:30. And I think my husband and I were planning to go, and I was wondering if anybody else wanted to come. I thought it might be good to get some Hideout representation there. It's an actual
Great.
in-person meeting at 6:30 on Tuesday evening.
Where is it?
I'd have to look up it's in Heber. So I don't have the exact address, but I could get it. If anyone's interested, you can just reach out to me and I'll give you the details. Or I can I'll follow up and email it out to everybody.
Yeah, I think I saw that advertised. If we get something in the mail or in the newspaper, maybe. The Park Record? No.
No, it's available on the, just go to the county website.
Oh, county website. I got some sort of notification of it. I don't know how we got it though. Okay.
And there are some other organizations, and I think I don't want to put this on you, Chris, but I think you volunteered for that, the Mountain Land organization, and attending would be really nice. And I would love to go. I just really don't have the extra bandwidth with the other things I'm doing, but it'd be nice to, and I know they produce notes and all that, but it'd be really great for at least, one person maybe going to some of those, but also feeding back in an email format, what are the impactful items that are coming up that's going to affect us, particularly, or the major issues. Doesn't have to be anything lengthy, but anyway, food for thought. I think, Carol, you also go to some of those as well. So anyway, I would love to hear some, feedback, because I think that's an important organization.
In a nutshell, Ralph and the rest of you, it's the interlocal quarterly meetings with Wasatch County, but Chris and I attended the last one. Chris actually got on the agenda. She was postponed until the next meeting. And it really is about Midway and Heber. It really didn't include anything about Hideout or the 248 corridor at all. It was just issues that dealt with Midway and Heber.
Yeah, and let me just pile on one more meeting. So there are a lot of entities involved. I'm invited to a UDOT meeting on the 28th over at the state park. It's the rural transportation plan where UDOT is reasserting their commitment to local rural communities, and they're going to talk about some role of transportation in health, economy, mobility, and connected communities, and some ideas that can be addressed in their long-range transportation plan projects. So I am going to go to that. But we have a lot of these meetings, but I don't know how much actually gets accomplished. Right. I mean, we try to go there and represent Hideout. Like Carol mentioned, we both attended the meeting. Well, we were on Zoom. It was very hard to participate if you didn't show up in person into Midway, but somehow I got them. Oh, because Jan was there. I got them to recognize me, even though I wasn't in person, for some questions and participation. But had Jan not been there, it would have been impossible for me to participate because I wasn't there in person. But so we've got a lot of stuff going on, Ralph, and a lot of people talking about a lot of things, but how do we get some actionable, items out of it is really the kind of the challenge for us.
And maybe there isn't anything actionable, but I did see a picture of Nan Worrell and 3 other, I think it was mayors. I can't remember, it was in KPCW, whatever it was. But so there is some cross-county, regional discussions. I don't think we were part of it, but in any case, if we could, maybe make sure that we cover those spaces when we should be covering them. And if nothing's getting done, then maybe we'd back off or something. I don't know, but regionalization certainly seems to be an important area for all of us.
So Ralph,
agree. Good. I was just going to say, Mayor, I agree with Ralph. I think we need to be covering these. And we've covered some of them, but we're not reporting back on what happens, and we're not kind of collecting our information collectively and, trying to execute a good strategy of being visible and out there. So I think we can certainly improve on that, even though we've started to try to attend stuff. And I know Jan probably attends more stuff than we know about, but it'd be great if we could be, closing that loop with, letting, go ahead.
So Jan and I had a meeting with the Park City Mayor and her city manager maybe 3 weeks ago or so. We agreed that we were going to work on regionalization stuff. Jan's closer to it than I am, but there's a process underway. So that is taking place. I think the first goal of that group was trails. I'm not incorrect. I don't know if Jan's still on, but so there's progress on that front. Again, because of various litigation activities, some things that we can't talk about with them, and vice versa. So,
I agree with
trails are good neutral ground. Everybody agreed to that. There's other stuff that we can't
Chris,
do.
You're correct about sending more people and getting more involved. And I do try to stay involved in all of the regional issues. I think we've made huge strides in allocating duties, but I still think we could go back and assign one council member certain areas. And I know you've taken on trails, and Sherry has taken on this community outreach, and Ralph has taken on the economic development. I think we're making great strides that way. And to the extent we can increase our exposure into the community in those segregated areas, I think we would be doing some efficient work. And I think we still need more presence in transportation. It's, a lot of times it's being in the space. And I think Chris is right. You have to be there, and you actually communicate with people in person. And to the extent we can do that, I think it's very beneficial, but also very time consuming.
Yeah, well said, Jan. So yeah, and when you say transportation, you don't mean transit necessarily. You mean the gamut of transportation. So it's really UDOT really is at the center of transportation, at least for us.
There are two transportation groups. The one in Wasatch County is just starting up, but there's one, the it's the one that started by Summit County.
High Valley?
Yes, High Valley Transport. I tried to attend all of those meetings. I think it's very important. They're kind of a leader because they have run an efficient operation. And so I think to the extent we assign a transportation person, that they should attend both High Valley meetings and the Wasatch County startup. I think that would be really advantageous.
So I just want to say that's transit, right, Jan? Transit meaning buses or on-demand vans or
yes.
Transit, right? It's not transportation, which is I think more general and includes highways and and bike paths and things like that.
Right. But when you attend interlocal meetings that are transit related, like the one that you were present involving UDOT, the same people are there, and it's much more efficient if somebody understands the background of both and what's happening regionally.
So because I think we're all challenged, and as you mentioned, it is very time consuming. Is there a way that, if we have to divide it up and, sometimes, Jan, you go to some of the meetings, Carol or I might be someplace else, Ralph, for economic development might be elsewhere, et cetera. Can we make a commitment to each other to come back and file a report? Here's what happened at the meeting kind of thing, and just allow, share the information?
I think that's a great idea, Chris. And yeah, I attend a lot of meetings and I'm happy to follow up with a person if there's somebody who's willing to, to carry the conversation. And yeah, happy to do that.
Is there?
What we'd have to do.
I'll do the
have to
transit
do
jam.
Is be very efficient as far as the reporting. 10 minutes per slot, on a town council agenda. And if you need more, then you set up times afterwards.
I think that sounds good. Quick
We
summary.
can't manage a full debate about approach and everything else on every topic. We'll have 16-hour council meetings instead of 8.
Is there a way to use Teams to have a place where, a folder where we have everything transportation related, a folder where we have water related?
I was thinking the same thing, but we should have a trip report. So if you're writing something up, but yeah, we have that availability. We have all those folders in Microsoft Teams that we've established. There's absolutely no reason we can't establish a few more folders for the major topical themes that we want to cover.
Actually, I think we also need a little bit of a how to use Teams.
What do you think about if we had maybe a report at council meeting just from the various groups assigned? So just give a brief update, because I know some of these meetings don't go anywhere. And for me to sit down and hash out the discussions would be purely inane, because sometimes they're circular, sometimes they're just people venting frustrations, and they go on and on. So I wonder if we could just have a brief update from committee members.
Yeah, as long as it's short, we're good.
I thought that was what Mayor was talking about, like a 10-minute update or something like that.
At most.
At most.
Yeah, at most. So, and the other thing is maybe we can just, even if we establish a folder, call it, external Hideout meetings folder or something like that, you label your email and you just save it into that folder, which might have 4 bullets. But at least we can track what, where we're going, who's going where. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we have Alicia, who's so good at this, tracking, like we have a spreadsheet or something, and we just kind of like, X the meetings that we're going to. So at least we have kind of a running background on what we're attending and, what feedback we're expecting. And again, something Alicia's done with some of the follow-ups that we're doing with our minutes. Same kind of thing.
You mean like a calendar, Ralph? This meeting at this time, and Carol's going, and this other meeting, Jan's going. Here's when it is.
Yeah, it could be that, or just the spreadsheet or whatever. I don't know. I haven't thought this through. Just kind of like something that tracks what that, oh, Jesus, I know, like you said, I know Chris went to this last, and Carol went to this last regional meeting or whatever that might be. You might want to have, then who to talk to. And if we have regulars going specifically to that meeting, we're going to know who's going anyway.
Yep. No, I like it. I like it, Ralph. We'll figure out some really efficient way to do this. But let's just start just by committing to, providing a brief summary to, to the group of what the meeting was, and, was there anything said that was important for Hideout, or, a quick synopsis, just something like that, so we can just all try to stay in touch, because as Jan said so well, these things take so long. There's such a time commitment. We can't all be doing that. We just have to find a good, efficient way to stay informed about what's happening with all these interlocal or regional meetings that are happening. Okay, Mayor, what did we accomplish?
We have a committee to look at some base and figure out where we can do some things. So we're going to work on that in the next few weeks or so. We're going to have greater committee look at some stuff. We agreed we're going to reconnect sometime in the next 60 to 90 days. And we're going to add line item to the council session for updates from staff or council members who, or planning commission members who attended some regional type event and would be willing to feedback.
Do we need a training session? Who is that? Glenn, is that?
Oh, I
brought
guess
that
then
up?
we need a training session on
Microsoft
if
Teams
we're gonna-
training.
Yeah, I mean,
Outlook
Jerry left, and I think the only training we ever had was when he
From
originally.
him.
Yeah, and so I think we're overdue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, if you guys need help a little bit with that, Ralph, I know you can do it, but
Yeah.
I live in Teams every day at work, so I do know how to use the thing.
And
Well, Chris, I'm pretty sure that there are self-learning type videos with Teams available
Yeah.
that we can sign up for and let everybody, take the few basic classes before we need to get into that. I mean, everybody should be able to take a half-hour Teams class somewhere. I'm sure we can get that set up.
so just so you know, and when Glynis knows, just when Jerry signed me up, a couple years ago, a few years ago, whatever, and when I signed into Teams initially, you could pick, as Chris said, you could do training. Teams actually includes training sessions right on there. So that was very helpful.
Hey,
And-
Alicia, oh, sorry. Go
And
ahead,
I was
Donna.
just gonna say, and could we use, maybe can we connect with our computer technological, I know Alicia had given me a name of somebody to help with any tech support. I don't know if they would help us get team, or if those who don't have Teams can help, help.
We can, everybody on the planning commission and everybody in the council should have access to Teams.
Yeah.
If you don't, we can get that set up.
Now,
Easy.
Alicia has her hand up. She may be able to help you guys out.
yes.
Well, I just wanted to say, we need to be really careful about using Teams because everything you create becomes a record. And if I don't know where it is, then I don't know where to hunt for it if somebody grandma's it. So just, if we can be really careful with Teams. Also, the chat feature could get us into some trouble too. So if we're all
Also,
collaborating. and chatting.
could Polly please weigh in on the open public meeting and having dialogue amongst council members in a platform such as Teams?
Agreed.
Yeah, so, right, I've been kind of thinking that, but hearing the discussion be like, if you're just putting it up on a calendar, I'm not so concerned, but if you're having back and forth discussions, then that should really be happening in your meetings. And I like where you guys were going with the idea. I have to say, in all my other towns, they do a little report either at the beginning or usually at the end of the meeting, where each council person gives a report of other meetings they've attended over the last month.
Yep. I would agree. I think Teams could get us into a little bit of trouble for what Polly said and what Alicia said. So maybe we should start simple and do this report in our meetings, our public
The benefit
meetings.
of the report at the council meeting is that it'll go into your minutes. It kind of has an easy place to live, right?
Right,
Kind of
exactly. Yep. I think we should start simple and start there. So I'll volunteer next council meeting, if, assuming I go to this regional planning, rural transportation meeting from UDOT, I will get something ready to present for our July council meeting. And keep it under 5 minutes, Phil. 3 minutes.
Thank you.
3. Time me. Okay.
I'll take I'll take the over on that, Chris.
Okay. Get out your stopwatch.
If I'm still breathing.
I'm really proud of you, Mayor, that you're still hanging in there with this meeting.
Yeah, it's 2.5 hours. I think we've kind of gone around the loop a couple times. I think we should probably think about having a motion to end
I was
the
gonna,
session.
I was going to make a motion that we end the meeting at 2.5 hours.
So before we end it, I just have one question. And I'm sorry, I don't want to drag it out any longer. It's a question for the Plan Commission. It's also a question for the council. Do we feel like we've had an opportunity to actually speak to one another in this way? Do we like, having a working session periodically to get things out in the open, to ask questions of one another? Is this been helpful?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's definitely been helpful for me. I really appreciate, getting this one-on-one input from other council members. I would really, what would be ideal is if we can meet in person. And if anybody's uncomfortable, I think we could, wear a mask. But, if there's any way we can meet in person, I think that would be the best. But I'm very happy with this, and I'm glad that we were able to accomplish this. Thank you for all involved in getting this together.
Well, it sounds like we need to prioritize getting a gazebo with some seating outdoors, so we can
meeting in an amphitheater. We can
or an amphitheater. We need that amphitheater. So
then we should have music
and some music. Boy,
and then play a pickleball game in between.
That sounds good. All right.
All right. Can we please?
I'll make a motion.
Quick question before we adjourn. Do we need a motion for Planning Commission to continue the items to tomorrow, or is that properly noticed already?
That's a good question. I can't remember after the public hearings if you guys continue. I think you continued them already to tomorrow night.
Yeah, they did.
The last Planning Commission continued the items to tonight, and then we noticed for tomorrow night to continue.
And earlier that it would be continued in tomorrow's meeting if anybody had any more public comment that they wanted to make.
Yeah. So basically the answer is yes, we covered that at the beginning. Both those items 1 and 2 were continued to tomorrow.
And did we take a vote?
It was not a vote tonight.
No, a vote to continue.
You already can, no, you're okay because you continued the public hearing at that time. You're good.
You don't have to vote to continue the public hearing.
Correct. You're okay.
Okay, with that, we're ready for a motion? Or who makes a motion? Is this a Planning Commission motion or a council motion?
I made a motion to adjourn the meeting.
And I'll second that.
And then we'll take a vote of the Planning Commission members. Glynis?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
And Tony's a yes. Okay, therefore it will be continued tomorrow.
Okay.
That being said, I don't. What?
Probably does the council also need to vote to finish?
I think we lost her. So I think we should just do it out of an abundance of.
Sorry, I'm here. I thought I had hit unmute and I didn't. I would say that the council should do it, but you don't have to do a roll call vote. You can just vote as a block.
Council as a block.
Wait, hold on. Hold on a second. Even though we're on Zoom, I thought there was a change, and I heard this from Alicia, that I thought we had to do a roll call for a Zoom, even to end a meeting.
No, the new rule is that you have to, Alicia has to, if somebody votes nay, she has to mark that on the whatever you're voting on to keep a record of who voted. So it's not just 4 yes, 1 no. It has to be specific to which person, but you can do just general votes.
Okay, thanks.
So all in favor of closing the meeting from the council, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. I think we can close. Thank you, everybody. It was a very worthwhile, interesting discussion. I think we have lots of opportunities together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Okay,
Feel
bye.
better.
It all.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good
You
night.
too.
Good night. Good night. Thank you.